Okay. It says that we are live. Just want to verify that we are indeed live. It hasn't yet reflected on YouTube that we are live. That we are indeed live. Okay, it's on YouTube now. It hasn't yet. Um,
There's an echo.
yeah,
Oh,
I was playing it on my. So I'm also like, if you see me looking up here, it's because I'm
mm,
watching the YouTube on my monitor, so I can know if
oh,
anybody says a comment or anything.
okay.
But yes, welcome once again, everyone, to my How You Came into Developer Relations series. I think 2 weeks ago I had Idris on here and we talked about developer relations. I think developer relations manager. That's who Idris is. A manager? I can't even remember. Anyways, today
Developer.
yeah, I think we develop advocate. Anyways, today we have Amarachi, who is going to share with us her story and her experience as a community manager, how she came into the DevRel space, how she got to know about the DevRel space, what her experience has been so far. I have few questions here we're going to ask her and can also get questions from you. So before I go further, I'd love Amarachi, if you want to just give a brief introduction about yourself.
All right. Thank you very much, Dillion. Hi, everyone. I am Amarachi Johnson-Ubah. I am a community manager at Consensus Mesh and at Shikod Africa. I am also a mom to a 3-month-old baby. I always like to say that these days, so everyone knows that I really tried. So it's it's very, very nice to be part of this session today, and I'm looking forward to sharing about my story and my journey into community management. Thank
Super
you, Dilly.
nice. Super great. Yeah, I think it's nice to remind us that you have responsibilities. Well, great. We currently have two people live. I don't know if we should probably wait a minute more for people. I mean, people can definitely come back to watch this, but I think it would be nice to also have like real time questions.
Yeah.
So maybe just few seconds to see who joins and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. And like I also said, like I also mentioned before the video started, I don't I feel like I have an idea of community management, but it's not something that I have like researched on or spoken with anybody in that field. Oh, I just saw it. But yeah, I think there will also be many things that I can learn from this.
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
I don't know. People can definitely come back to watch this. I don't think we should wait.
Yeah, we can continue since we have just 1 hour to spend here.
Yeah. Well, let's start from the first question that I have, which is your current job? You mentioned that you are a community manager at Consensus. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
This match, yes.
Consensus Match.
Consensus match, yeah.
Okay. And I was just going to ask, is this your first full-time developer relations role, or were you in developer relations before now?
Full time. I love the specification there. Full time, yes. This is my first full time role. I've had a DevRel position before, but it wasn't full time. So yeah, I hope
Okay.
that's the question.
Well, I mean, the reason why I was just going to ask that is I wanted to have an idea of how long you have been in developer relations space. So I think with what you said now, it feels like you have been there before.
Yeah, I've been in the space since 2020. First as a volunteer, and then I became a contractor with a company, Sourcegraph. Then I eventually joined Consensus Mesh when my contract ended. So it's been roughly 3 years now
Wow,
since I became a community manager. Yeah.
nice. Okay, as a contractor, you were also in as a community manager.
Yeah, as a contractor, I was a community manager.
Wow, nice. Feels like you've actually been in this space for a while.
Yeah, I
Uh,
tried.
well, great.
Yeah.
My next question was going to be like, how long have you been in this space? But you already mentioned that that was 3 years.
It's been 3 years, but I've been having, like, the first year was voluntary role. Like at Shikod Africa, I was a community manager, but it was just on. I was basically learning. In
Mm.
fact, I owe my journey, my success, and virtually everything I know about community management first to Shikod Africa before any other organization, because being a volunteer there, I was able to experiment as much as I could. Like, that
Okay.
was my first entry into the job role. So I didn't know anything about community management before then. I had no idea. I became a community manager the day Shikod Africa said, "Welcome to SCA as our community manager." you know, I
Yeah.
wasn't before. There was no experience on my part. So I was a community manager there for a year before I got my first contract role as a community manager at Sosgraph. And I worked with Sosgraph for 8 months. Then I
As a
moved on
contractor.
as a contractor, yeah, eight
Okay.
months before I moved on to Consensus Mesh as a full-time employee.
Oh, nice. The journey has been from volunteering, learning, to being a contractor, to finally full time.
Yeah.
Oh, that has been a journey. But that's great. So my next question is, I don't know if you can still remember, because 3 years feels like, okay, a while, but when did you get to know of the developer relations field? When and how did you get to know of it?
Okay. This question is very interesting because, okay, let me just give you a background of how I even, like, my tech journey has been. Like, it hasn't been a straightforward one. I came into tech first as a front end developer in 2018. So during my time as a front end developer in the city of Aba, which was where I resided, I I started volunteering for communities around me, developer communities mostly. So when there
Mm,
were events, I, joined the LOC. I think that's what they are called, like local organizing committee. So I joined them. We co-hosted a lot of events. Sometimes when there are maybe opportunities to volunteer as social media manager, I did all that. Opportunities to speak, I spoke at those events. While
mm,
I was doing those things, I had no idea there was anything called DevRel or community management. I had no idea that there were roles like that. I didn't know that there were non-technical roles in tech. I only thought it was all about writing codes, and I was trying my best to become a better front-end web developer, right?
mm.
So I did that. Excuse me, that's my alarm too, my affirmation alarm. So I did that for a while, and then I volunteered for Oscar Abba, to
Okay.
handle our social media platform for the very first Oscar event that happened in Abba. So when I volunteered, I was just doing my thing. And prior to this time, I didn't really know a lot of things around Twitter, but I really love to express myself. Like when I go for any event, I love to tweet.
Mm,
I didn't know I was doing something great, but I handled that social media account so well that Samson Gordy, you know him,
yeah.
reached out to the organizer of Oscar Abba and said they want whoever handled Oscar Abba social media platform to handle for
Wow.
Open Source Festival 2020. So I
Wow.
remember the day that was on the day of the event. After volunteering for that event, I missed the event. I couldn't come because I had another volunteering event in Port Harcourt. So I traveled. Then on returning, the guy told me that Samson said I was going to manage Open Source
Wow.
Festival. I was
Wow.
like, me, I cannot do this. Like, I don't even know what I was doing. Like,
Yeah.
I was just tweeting, I was just doing my thing. So now that someone is telling me to do it in a more professional way, imposter syndrome hits me so hard. I
Yeah.
felt like, "No, did you even tell them that this person is not a social media manager? I am not a social media manager. I have no idea what I'm going to do, right?"
Yeah.
So I said all that, and he encouraged me. He said I was going to do great. I should
Yeah.
say yes. I should say yes. So I replied to Samson, and I told him that I was going to do it. So he told me that I could, manage the social media. I started working on their Twitter handle. I created an Instagram channel and all of those things. So oh, my lights is distracting me because they want to take it. Okay, so after that event, prior to that event, I applied to Shikood Africa as a programs and partnership lead.
Okay.
Of course, I was rejected. because I have no idea what a programs and partnership lead does, but I love to volunteer. If you follow my story closely, you see that I've been volunteering for a long time. So I wanted to volunteer for She Could Africa. They rejected me, which I really take it well because I wasn't qualified for that role.
Mm.
So I left that role, like I didn't bother about it again. I went back to, doing my thing with Oscar, and I managed the Oscar 2020 social media channels. If you were
Wow.
watching closely, you know that the event of 2020 was a hit back to back.
Yeah.
And I was
Had a lot
behind
about it.
everything social for
Wow.
that. I didn't still know what I was doing. But I was able to handle that event so nicely that after the event, Ada reached out to me and said, "Hey, Amarad, are you still interested in joining She Could Africa?"
Oh wow.
Very
Wow.
nice. She reached out to me and said, "Are you still interested?" And I said, "Yes, I want to join She Could Africa." And she said, "All right, we have a slot for a community manager. Will you
Oh
be able to join
nice.
us about that?" Yeah, and that was how I started this entire community management thing. I didn't know that that was a job role. I didn't know any single thing about it. Like I see a lot of people joining the space now. They have resources. They reach out to me. They say, "I want to be a community manager. Can you point me to resources?" And I'm like, wow, I'm very happy for you guys. For me, when I joined this space, I did not even know this
That's
was a
my
career
idea.
path, right?
Yeah.
Not to talk of maybe meeting anyone to say, "Please, can
Yeah.
you help me with resource?" I did not know, right? So I,
Wow.
I basically told my story. This was how I came into community management. That's
I
why I
think
usually feel like I was an accidental community manager because I didn't know how. It just happened. Yeah.
I think this is an amazing story that you actually have, and there's just this whole emphasis on volunteering, and I feel like that's something um, people today, probably even myself, would kind of like not want to get associated with because we're always looking at the financial rewards of it. But I think from your story here, it also highlights that aside financial rewards, there are other form of rewards that may even come later on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I find your story and navigating the whole social media management, community management, I find it so nice. So now that you say you came in here, you didn't even know what you were doing. At what point
Mhm.
did, if you remember, at what point did it click that you were in a developer relations role?
It was last year when I joined Sourcegraph. I didn't know
Ah,
when I was at She Could Africa volunteering, I still had no idea that what I was doing had anything to do with DevRel. In fact, at some point, I started nursing the dream of maybe becoming a developer advocate, but I had to talk myself out of it because I felt I don't have the required skill to be a developer advocate. So I wanted to be in DevRel, but I thought developer advocacy was the only thing
yeah,
level. So when I realized that maybe I don't have the skill, I just said, let me focus on, community management. But I did not know that the community management I was doing
yeah,
was under DevRel still, right? So it
yeah.
was here that it eventually hit me when I eventually got to really work in a DevRel team at SourceGraph. And that was when I now realized that, oh, I'm in DevRel.
Yeah, nice. I think even for me, I used to always think like developer relations is just another name for developer advocacy.
Yeah, same here. Same
That
here.
was how I used to think about it before. Until I started seeing things like developer experience, technical writer, and I was like, technical writing? You mean I've been writing and I have been a developer advocate one way or the other?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's also nice that you're able to point out that story of how you realized later on that it was part of DevRel. Well, great
Yeah.
story so far. For everyone who has joined us, I think there are like 7 people who have joined us now. You're all welcome. I see Blessing, Jiki, Joseph in the comment. I see Meek. I don't know if it's Meek or Mick, but you're all welcome. So the next question I have is now, um, when you said, because you mentioned that you started nursing that dream of being a developer advocate, but yeah, you didn't know you were part of developer relations. But what was your mindset about developer relations? Like before the picture became clearer, what did you
Mhm.
used to think developer relations was all about?
Okay, so I used to think developer advocates which are the people I thought were DevRels,
Yeah.
are like OGs in the software industry. Because then I would go on LinkedIn to, search for developer advocacy roles. And when I read their job descriptions, I usually saw things like 8 years developer experience. You see the reason why I read myself off. I used to see, like, I thought it was people who have, been in software development for so long, and now they want to experience a little bit of the marketing aspect. And then you should also have a large following on Twitter. This
Mm.
was my definition. And then some of the people I saw in Devra were also like fitting into this my description.
Oh
They
yeah.
have large followings, they've been in tech for a long time. At that point, I was only about 2 years into tech. I started my tech journey late 2018. So 2019 was my first full year in tech, and that full year in tech was filled with a lot of confusing moments.
Yeah.
So that was why I felt like I don't belong here. Let me just focus on what I'm doing currently and see if I
Yeah.
can pocket 8 years or 10 years of software development experience. Then maybe I will come back
You
later
come back.
and apply years later.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh,
so
nice.
mm.
By the way, there's Tejas in the comments. Tejas, you're welcome. So happy to see you here. And he also sends his regards to you,
Um, yeah,
Amarachi.
I'm seeing comments from here actually.
Oh, maybe I don't have to read them to you then. Okay, great. Your story is actually really nice, especially when you talk about what you used to think Devra was before. I think also for me, I I didn't really know what Devro was about, but I used to think it was like having this whole large followings, and it was something like they had so much experience with technologies and tools, and
Mm-hmm.
probably requires a like long number of years of experience, and even things like followings on Twitter, influence on Twitter, on social media platforms. I thought those were like requirements also. So having that mindset and with where you are right now with your journey, how has that mindset changed? How do you see developer relations now? Like, how has that, like, your thoughts towards this, how has it improved over time?
Of course, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't still have a large following on Twitter. I don't have 8 years of experience, and here am I. I am currently in DevRel, so which means that those my assumptions were not correct, and there were also people that inspired me to know that maybe what I thought was not particularly correct. People like Didi Coates. I
Yeah.
know Didi have like currently she has years of experience. If I look back from now, 2023, but as at let's say 2021, she was still like, let's say, I don't know, I may not be correct, but within 3 to 4 years in tech or five, not so long, right? But I saw her move, through her career, developer advocate at InterSwitch. I think that was from her NYSC role. So when
Mm,
I looked at her and saw that she was able to move from NYSC role to become a dev rel, I think that was even her first or second work experience. I realized
well,
that maybe this is doable at the end of the day. I don't need to have like 10 years of work
yeah.
experience. I think I basically need to be someone that puts myself out there and shows willingness to help people and to learn. I think that's one of the things that companies look out for when it comes to the advocacy part
Mm,
of Everell. So yeah, my thought has changed drastically. Those things I think before I don't really think they exist. I know some companies might still be looking for OGs in the tech
yeah.
industry. Companies differ, but I still believe that there is room for the beginners, like I used to be in Devrel. Yeah,
No,
there's room for everyone to play.
really nice. I think one part I also pick from this story is we also have that moment in tech where we are kind of like figuring things out. I think one of the wrong notions that people get when coming into tech is they feel like once they come, should I take front end or should I take back end? Should I take design? They feel like
Yeah.
it's that straight road, but
Keep
at
saying
least,
it. Yeah, I keep saying it like tech is not very straightforward. Just don't overthink it. If you want to, after you've done your research and you feel like, let me start with cloud engineering, just start. Don't
yeah,
start asking people questions. If you try the cloud engineering with time, you get clarity.
yeah,
There are only very few people who are currently in the tech career path they started with. We
yeah,
keep moving, even when we are good at the current one. Like a few months ago, I started toying with data analytics. I don't know what I'm doing there, but it's just how we are, right? We don't
yeah,
really rest, do we?
yeah,
Right? So you just have to start somewhere and keep moving, keep moving, keep iterating or pivoting as the case may be. It's not a
yeah.
straight. That's why I love that video Ada did. I don't know if you saw that Ada's
Yeah, yeah, I
TikTok.
think it was on
Where she
TikTok.
was
Yeah,
singing. Yeah, it resonated with so many people because these are some of the things we don't talk about. Some people, when they see you in maybe you're a developer at Google, they think you just woke up one morning and started studying how to be a developer advocate
yeah,
from the first year to the last year, not knowing that it's a product of years of confusing moments.
yeah,
There was a time I even tried doing UI UX. I've done UI UX before. I don't even know what I've not done in this tech stuff, right? But at the
yeah,
end of it, that's why I told you that my 2019 was mostly like a very confusing year for me because somehow I was dabbling into so many things at the same time, just trying to know which one to fit into my career path.
yeah.
Eventually I found community management and I really like it here. And that's why I haven't moved away for
I
like
haven't
3 years.
left yet.
Even though I've been learning other things by the side, I've
Yeah.
learned Web3, I've tried learning blockchain,
Wow.
because of the company I work with is a Web3 company, so I have to be knowledgeable about Web3 somehow. So I'm learning Web3, I'm learning data analytics because I want to learn how to really report my community
Mm,
findings better,
mm.
right? So I am still learning things by the side, but I'm still here, community management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I relate to that story because even for me, there was a point where I thought I was going to be a graphics designer. I had this whole brand I created around graphics design. I even
Mhm.
did 1 year anniversary, 2 year anniversary, and
Wow.
now the brand has just been there. The Instagram accounts, all of that is still there, but I don't. And I started as a front end engineer, also thinking, okay, it's going to be like front end. Now I'm
Mhm.
doing developer advocacy. I'm also writing code back
Mhm.
end. Even in developer advocacy, I even told some of my friends I recently started learning Java because some of my jobs require it, and they were like, "What
Exactly.
Java?" So I think it's important for people to also know, like, not everybody jumps into the right role. It's a lot of navigations.
Yeah.
Moving forward, next question I have is: so you have mentioned your story around community management, how you started volunteering, how you love sharing stuff. Apart from
Mm.
these things that you have mentioned, are there any other things about developer relations that excite you the most? And amongst these things, do you have a favorite?
I think the core of the DevRel for me is sharing knowledge. That's like how the whole thing started. The willingness to share knowledge, to relate with people, help people, right? So that's still the best part of it for me. The fact that I know that through whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's writing articles, whether it's maintaining our community, I am really helping someone out there. A
Mm,
developer out there is getting better at doing what he or she is doing because I am doing what I'm doing from my
mm,
end. It's
yeah.
exciting, like knowing that what I'm doing is helpful to
Mm,
people. And that is the beautiful thing about community management. And I think it relates to DevRel as well because somehow developer advocacy and a couple of other roles in DevRel differ from each other. You know
mm,
that, right?
yeah.
So community management slightly differs from developer advocacy. Or then if you're working in a startup in a small team like me, I work with a small team within Consensus Mesh. I do my role is a lot. It's
Yeah.
fused.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see myself doing a developer advocate's role.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do community management. Sometimes I do technical writing, all within community management. But I don't
Uh,
want to go into those big details unless you have a question that would address that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't really have specific questions, but I feel like I understand because in big companies you have like dedicated teams. This is for DevRel,
Mm,
this is for developer experience. But in
yeah,
small teams, you have developer advocates. Even sometimes even doing marketing, doing what a marketing team should be responsible for.
exactly,
So
exactly.
I actually understand that. So apart from sharing knowledge and management in whole, you don't have any other exciting things? I mean, not like I'm expecting something. I'm just asking.
I think one of the things a lot of people find exciting is having to travel around, right?
But you don't sound like you found that exciting, do
I
you?
no, I haven't traveled yet, so I don't find
Okay.
excitement is something I haven't tried before because as a contractor in my previous company, I wasn't opportune to travel a lot, right? I only traveled to events that were within the country, within
Mm,
Nigeria. Then I was in Nigeria. Then in my current role, I joined when I was 7 months pregnant. I haven't been able to travel then from, maternity leave down to having a baby. So I haven't started traveling in my role yet. So
uh,
I know that when I start traveling, it's going to be so exciting.
But till then.
Already, yeah, till then, I'll know how exciting it is. Mm.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. And yeah, so far we've talked about developer relations, and you don't need to go to details. You don't need to like publicize what you don't need to publicize. But are
Okay.
there any parts of community management that you can share, like in your company? Please be as general as possible, so you don't share
Yeah,
information you're supposed to
I do
share.
want to understand your question. What kind of parts do you mean? Like job descriptions?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, job descriptions, like your responsibilities, probably what you do day to day, week to
Oh,
week,
good.
or in
I'm going
general.
to I'm going to share on a general note. And thankfully, I've been a community manager in like three different types of organizations,
Mm,
starting from an NGO, Shikoda Africa. I moved to SourceGraph, which is like a B2B, B2C. And now with my team, which is an open source project, the community I'm managing is an open source community under Consensus Mesh, right? So the experience I've gotten from these three organizations differ. They are
okay.
not. Yes, that is why all the time I keep learning. It's always like when you move from this job to the other, you start afresh.
Yeah, yeah, I
The
get that.
experience is there, but you still have to start afresh to learn the terrain of the new company.
Yeah.
So at the core of community management is interaction, it's communication. So most times when you check community management job descriptions, you see things like manage all our community platforms. Now, if you're working in small teams, you're going to manage both their Slack or Discord. You're going to manage all their social media channels because you're managing their social media, their community, and your role is to meet these community members anywhere they are. So if
Mm,
it's Twitter, you have to be there. If it's LinkedIn, you have to be there. But then if you go to some bigger companies, you're going to have like social media managers different from community managers. The community
mm,
manager might just focus on their Slack and their Discord and
yeah,
maybe go to events,
yeah,
organizing webinars, organizing virtual events, right? Throwing spotlights, giving building out developer champion programs, those
yes,
advocacy programs. So it differs from company to company. I don't think community management in company A is always exactly the same with company B, especially if they are not the same type of company.
yeah,
So, for instance, when we're let me use Shikoda Africa as example because I've been there for a long time, and of course, it's an NGO, so I'm still not going to overshare. When we joined new in 2020, the community manager literally did everything. We
wow,
did all the social media, we did the events, we did community engagement, we did the operations, the strategizing, every single thing. But as the community grew, then we were like less than 10,000. But right now we are approaching 20,000 members. Our
wow,
social media is almost, I think, 30 something thousand. So as the community grew, it became more difficult for the community managers to handle everything. We had to
yeah,
split it up to social media and community management. So at the end of the day, it's just about keeping an open mind, right?
mm,
And getting as many skills as possible because some community management roles will involve you writing, preparing newsletters. In
yeah,
some companies, the content team does that. Then in
yeah,
some companies, the community managers do that,
yeah,
right? So it's just for you. That's why most times I feel like the experience and those periods of confusion were helpful for me because the skills I garnered all those times eventually came to play now
mm,
because like you see yourself doing a lot of things depending on the company you joined, right?
yeah,
So as a community manager, as I've pointed out, you can sometimes you manage social media, you manage all the community platforms like Slack and Discord, you organize virtual or in real life events, as the case may be. You will also attend some of these events representing the company and not yourself. So as a community manager,
yeah,
you don't really, behave or talk or speak anyhow because somehow you're like the advocate.
yeah,
You know, people write on their bio tweets are is it tweets are mine or something. I
yeah,
think
like, yeah,
you might
tweets
just
are mine so that you don't attach it to the company.
yeah,
Yeah,
because most times you're not really speaking on your behalf. You're also speaking on behalf of your company.
yeah,
I'm trying to think of sometimes I've talked about the newsletter aspect. Some community managers need newsletter, not all of them.
yeah,
If you're lucky enough to be in a company that have a lot of team members, you might just find yourself doing just one aspect. It could just be
yeah,
social media, it could just be Discord, just focus on one thing.
yeah,
But find yourself in smaller startups that don't have the resources or the human resources to employ a lot of people, just
Yeah.
get ready to wear a lot of hats. You do a lot of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
And oh, nice. I think you've really covered many things here around what developer managers can be responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
So these events that you're talking about, are they like so you mentioned writing, and I was going to like, are these writing on technical topics like how to integrate your company's products? That's the first question. And number two, when you say events, what kind of events are these? Are these like technical for technical people, or are these events like sales events, or what kind of events?
Okay, the things you would write are not going to be technical. I haven't written technical articles in my role, but the articles you write will be things like announcements, like we are announcing our DevRel advocacy program. You can
Mm,
write an article of how to participate as a community manager. If it's
mm,
an open source community, you can write an article on how to contribute as a first timer.
mm.
Nobody is expecting you to start going into the code base,
Okay.
right? Have a question that is addressing how much code a community manager writes. I don't know if I should go ahead and answer it now, but the answer is very little or none at all.
Okay.
Community managers don't write codes. So you don't write technical articles. Even if your team does not have content writers or technical writers, your engineering team can write those articles
Yeah.
while you just give like a couple of feedback if you can understand certain aspects of the article. No one
Yeah.
expects that from you. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Okay, I think I just
And the
answered
part
one
of the,
question for
yeah, the part of the events.
the event you're basically going for instance, my company is in Web3. We are most likely to have like events around Web3, like Ethereum, Denver. You have Web3 so
Okay.
country. So when you go to those events, your job is mostly to interact with community members. You also listening on the talk. Like if I attend such event, I'm going to listen in on the talk, but I am not compelled to understand the technicalities of whatever they are discussing. My
Mm,
job is just to understand what is going on in the industry. What are the new trends they are talking about? What's the
mm.
latest? Is it now Web 20? Are we still in Web
Yeah.
10? You get
Yeah.
so I don't have to concern myself so much or bother myself with the technical aspects if I don't get it. But I need
Okay.
to try to interact with my community. When I was at SourceGraph, I attended a couple of events in Nigeria on behalf of SourceGraph. So when I was going, I'd go with swags.
Mm,
You know, so
yeah.
I go to swags. I try to talk to the people coming to our booth
Yeah.
about our products, what we do. They can enter a raffle or scan a QR code depending on the criteria for the giveaway.
Okay.
I'll give them those swag, right? So that also reminds me of one other thing community managers do. Sometimes companies get into partnership with event organizers.
Yeah.
These events like Oscar Festival and all the big ones, right? So the community managers sometimes also act as the POC, the point of contact between the event organizers and their company. That was one of the things I did at SourceGraph. That was one of my
Okay.
roles, to be a point of contact between these two organizations. Yeah, and
Nice.
also to attend those events and relate with the community members there, and also try to bring in new members into our community.
Oh, nice. So I can see it's like a lot of community management work in various forms, and
Yeah.
the part of technicality. So what I understand is like you are not compelled to really understand the code and how to
Mm,
integrate, but you also like have a good idea of, what your company is doing, what the product is about, what trends are out there, and all those
mhm,
things. Okay.
exactly.
Well, that's really nice. So the next question I have is, I think you've probably answered this a bit in all the stories that you have shared. And
Mm-hmm.
also for the questions in the comments, would come to read like after we're done with the questions I have. I have just like two or three more. So in your opinion, what are the required skills for anyone who wants to be a community manager in the developer relations field? Like what advice would you give to anybody interested?
Okay, I think you just asked two questions. One was required skill, and one was
I mean,
advice.
I'm like, in your opinion, what are the required skills? So that's also still part of advice.
Yeah, so when it comes to required skill, community management deals more with soft skills than technical skills. So soft
Okay.
skills like proper communication skill. You don't say I am an introvert or I'm a man of few words as a community manager. You need to learn how to talk
Yeah.
both to your managers, like to the higher level. You need to know how to communicate the impact of your initiatives to them, and you also need to know how to talk to people. At the core of what you do as a community manager is interaction with people. So you should know
Mm,
how to communicate both in written and in oral form. It's very important. Then we
mm,
have other things like being empathetic, because without empathy, you won't be able to, understand the pain points of your community.
yeah.
We have things like event management, because most times you see community managers organizing Twitter spaces, so you have event management and moderation, because we moderate these events, right?
Yeah.
So it's mostly soft skill more than it's tech skills, because a lot of companies believe that when you join them, as long as you have this ability to communicate, you love to learn, you love to share, when you join them, you can always pick up. Once they onboard you properly and
Yeah.
tell you about the company and all the things they are doing,
Yeah.
add you to their different platforms, you read up their blog posts and everything, you will catch up eventually,
Yeah.
right?
True.
But if you don't have these skills, like the empathetic skill, the communication skill, it's hard for you to succeed as a community manager. But then if you come to advice that I'll give any community manager or someone who intends to come into community management, I would say if you know some of those things that you see an a typical community manager does, don't wait for a company to employ you before you
Mm,
start doing it.
yeah.
Because most times getting your first break in any job is the hardest.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
why? Why? It's because they are looking for experience,
Yeah.
right? That is why it's important to volunteer. So if you try volunteering and it seems you're not seeing opportunities for you to volunteer, start doing those things by yourself.
Mm,
Organize your own creator spaces and host. Use it
mm,
as a job experience, right? Your
yeah.
experience in event moderation. So volunteering is very good. Like I cannot tell my story in tech or my success story without mentioning volunteering. It's very important, especially when you want to break into a new role from
Mm,
a different role.
different
You need
background.
to
Yeah.
volunteer as much as you can. Put out your skill out there for free. Don't look at money or what anybody is going to be paying you. Nobody pays
Dollars.
all through my volunteering period between 2019 and 2020. I volunteered all through and I was broke.
Oh, wow.
I was very broke. My laptop even broke down, but I couldn't replace it.
Broke with your
I was
broke.
saving money in Cowrywise, but after a year, I could only save about 60,000 naira, which was not enough to purchase a laptop. My brother had to come to my
Okay.
rescue because it was getting too much,
Oh, yeah.
right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's quite
volunteer.
a success story actually. And yeah, I think for anyone who is possibly in live now or coming back to watch this, and maybe because I love that you started with the fact that you thought, developer relations is just a technical skill role, and now
Mhm,
you have seen something which is like not really like very technical but more of soft skills. So probably it's a field that people who want to come into tech can also try out. And with the
mhm,
tips you have mentioned and your success story, I think
mhm.
people can also apply that.
Yeah, then one,
And
one more thing I need to add to that is that when you're talking about developer relations, now community manager is part of a dev team, but there are also community managers in other non-tech fields, right? You can be a community manager in an agricultural sector, in a different
yeah,
sector. But
yeah,
if you want
nice.
to be a community manager in a tech company, like you want to be part of a developer relations team, there's a reason that developer is there. It
Mm,
gives you an edge. I
yeah,
think it's better if you switch from a tech role somehow to community
yeah,
management, because when interviewers interview you and get to know that you already had a technical background, even if you've not built any website, they don't care whether you have a website anywhere or you have a finished product. They just want to know that you have a technical idea. You've
yeah,
actually interacted with developers before. You're
yeah.
not just coming from an entirely different sector to tech.
True,
They want to know that you've had some experience in the tech
true.
sector, right? So it was very advantageous for me. It was one of the things that helped, because I used to be a front end web
Yeah,
developer and then
true.
I was pivoting. So I knew at least GitHub. So if you want to be in DevRel as a community manager, try to learn basic things like you can start with HTML, you can know what version control is,
Yeah,
GitHub, You should know how to at least send a PR. There are sometimes I have to send PRs even as a community manager. I might
Mm.
want to add the links to our community to,
Yeah.
let's say, our documentation. I don't need to ping an engineer to
Yeah.
do that for me. I quickly add the code and send a PR for
Yeah.
approval. So you need to
Right.
have a little tech background, no matter how little, is
Yeah.
important.
Oh, nice, really nice. I really relate to that because one of the ways I explain developer relations is you are relating with other developers. So
Mm.
if you don't have a technical background yourself, how do you relate with other developers? How do you relate with their struggles? How do you know how to communicate or approach them? So I really
Yeah.
love the fact that you also placed emphasis on having technical background because that also influences your relationship with the community with developers. Now, the last
Yeah.
question I have here before we go to the questions and the comments is, well, I feel like you just slightly answered this, but I'm still going to ask it if you have any new ideas. How
Okay.
much of a programmer or how much of a technical person should you be to before you can transition into developer relations? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, that's a nice question, actually. I know I've touched on it a little bit,
Yeah.
but I still have to, like, let me rephrase it in a different way. I've had coffee chats with a couple of community managers who don't have a technical background. I
Hmm.
usually I usually do this coffee chats where I reach out to a random community manager from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We call and we chat. A lot of them don't have a technical background, but there's something I usually say to myself, or as Africans, like, I got that word from John Obidi. He says your fight is different. As
Hmm.
Africa, you need to stand out somehow. These people I'm chatting with as community managers are, like, they are not Africans. So
Hmm.
I think they might have more opportunities or advantages. I have no idea the advantages they enjoy. But as an African who is competing in a global market,
Hmm.
this community management role you're looking for, there are thousands of people out there also
Yeah.
looking for you. What makes you
True.
stand out exactly? So
True.
you need to equip yourself with an extra weapon, something that would make you stand out in the front of these recruiters. Well, why would they forget about hiring someone just to take you, right?
Yeah.
So that is why I advocate that if you want to get into developer community management, because that's my job role at Consensus Mesh. I told you to add it in the slide, but it was too long, right?
Yeah,
So
it was still long. It was cutting out.
yeah,
Sorry
so
about that.
yeah, well, my role is developer community management. So if you want to be a developer community manager, you have to try to have a little technical background. As I said, you mustn't have a full-blown project on GitHub, but
Mm.
know, like, version control, know how to use a lot of tech tools. Like,
Yeah.
at least I don't think at this age anyone should not know how to use Zoom, to schedule
Yeah.
calls. Know how to use your Calendly, know how to use Discord.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to use Discord, join as many communities as possible and see how Discord, or you can even decide to create a server for yourself and try setting it up just to see how to,
Yeah.
to navigate the whole thing. Know how to use Slack, right? Just have this knowledge, because these are not the things they want to teach you. They only
Yeah.
want to teach you, like, basic things about the company, not
Yeah.
the tools you should use. So you should
Yeah.
know all these things, and then a little technical background. It's perfect.
So what you're saying as an answer to this question is that you don't have to be like a full blown programmer,
No,
but you should
no, you
just
don't.
really have a good understanding of basic
Yeah,
things.
basic things. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
exactly.
Well, I really loved how you've answered these questions and even touched points that I didn't even know would be touched in this video or in this live stream. So thanks for that. Those are all the questions I have. If I probably think of another one before the 1 hour limit, I would let you know. But now just go through the comments and get the questions people ask, which I believe you have also seen some of them. Somebody already asked like how much code do you write now that you're in DevRel. You already explained that you don't like involve yourself with so much code details. Somebody said, what experience do you think is necessary to be successful in a developer relations role? And I think you also answered this because you touched things like soft skills and communication and
Yeah.
being able to like having a technical background, being able to use certain tools. I don't know if there is any more you want to possibly add to that question.
the question was for developer relations. So
Yeah, it
the
wasn't specific to community.
generalizing,
Yeah,
yeah, you're generalizing developer relations. So I would say it depends on the aspect of DevRel you want to get into. If you want to be a developer advocate, I think developer advocates write more codes than community managers.
yeah,
You write code snippets, documentations. So you need to really know how to read and understand codes.
yeah,
But as a community manager, the skills you have, as I said earlier, they are more soft skills than technical skills.
yeah,
You know, ability to research,
yeah,
Google. It's not all the
yeah,
time asking questions. Community management is a very vast career path.
yeah.
What you did in company A might be an entirely different thing you do in company B,
From the
because
B.
you
Yeah,
have to work with different strategies depending on the
yeah.
developer community you're working with. So you have
True.
to be good with strategy as well, right? Be good with strategy. But somehow, my number one skill anytime I want to talk with anyone who wants to get into community management is to know how to communicate in oral and written. And
Mm,
this is not as little as I just said it, because when it comes to written, I don't mean the ability to write WhatsApp messages. I mean the
mm,
ability to write like long form content in a way that does not just communicate for communication's sake. You also communicate your intent as well.
yeah,
Because you're not just going to be sharing things with your community members, you're going to be sharing things with your OGA, like your
yeah,
bosses. You need to be
yeah,
telling them the impact of your strategies, the impact of all the initiatives you've been
yeah.
carrying out. You should also be someone who does not procrastinate,
Mm,
because as a community manager, you're going to be trying a lot of things. You do Twitter spaces, it's like it's not working. You try new ways of doing one thing a lot of time. Sometimes a lot of companies, in as much as they gave you a JD, that's your job description as a community manager, they really allow you to run things.
yeah,
You come up with your strategy, you defend your strategy, you start executing your strategy,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
if you know that you need any help, you communicate the help you need. If you
yeah,
need an engineer from your team to host certain sessions, you reach out to these people, tell
yeah,
them why you need their help in so so and so. So that's why I usually hit the point on communication, because
yeah.
it's very important. If you know how to write all the codes in the world and how to use all the Zoom and all the tools in the world, but you can't communicate, you fail as a
Mm,
community manager, right? So
yeah.
I think I've already
Yeah,
just.
thanks for those additions to the things you said before. So the person says, like, safe to say they're on the right path because they have done so many things. Yes, you are most likely on the right path because we have navigated a bunch of things. Blessing is asking, what are the things you would list as your to dos for community manager Devro? I think you've also
I already
actually
mentioned that. So
touched that.
maybe at the end of the video, you can like watch this again.
Okay, nice. Somebody said, what types of technical writing or communication skills are important in the developer relations role? And what types of technical writing?
I think I will still say it over and over again until everyone gets that DevRel is not like the entirety of it. There are roles under DevRel. So when you want to ask a question, are you asking for community managers or
Hmm,
for developer advocates or for the evangelists,
yeah,
developer evangelists? I'm trying to get to that. There are too many
yeah,
V's. Developer evangelist.
yeah,
So the job roles differ. So when you're talking about technical writing, community managers don't write technical articles.
yeah.
That is
Okay,
the job of developer advocates and the rest. But a community manager can write certain long form content. I already mentioned that before. So maybe
yeah,
if you watch this video again, you would get those points.
nice. Um, someone, Somtochukwu says that they are still confused about what part of tech to get into, and they have traveled on many paths, and they are glad that you said it's part of the process. And yeah, it's part of the process. And just like you also mentioned, it's only very few people who like instantly knew what they wanted to do. And I want to do front end, I want to do back end. For some other people, jump until they're like, okay, I think this is where I want to stay, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I wish you
And
all.
sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, I'm wishing Som Tochukwu all the best. I'm hoping
Okay.
he or she or they find a suitable career path very soon.
Yeah. Jiki Bird says, does a DevRel need to contribute to open source project? And what tips do you have for getting involved in the open source community as a DevRel person?
Are you sure you shouldn't be answering that question? Because I think the question is not targeted at community managers.
Okay.
I've always for like community managers, we don't do a lot of codes.
Yeah.
If I decide to contribute to an open source project, it's just because I also love open source. It's not because
Yeah.
of my job. My
Yeah.
company don't expect me to contribute to open source projects. I don't do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think also it depends on the role because there are certain roles in DevRel that are specific on open source project. Because in my
Yeah.
previous company as a developer advocate, I was working on the company's SDKs, and then I had a colleague which is also called a developer advocate, and he was focused on open source project. That was his own JD. That was his own responsibilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on not just the role itself, but also what the company specifies as your responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And Blessing says, would you say the pay for DevRel community manager is great, or do you feel it can be better? Really nice question. Tell us the truth, Amarachi.
Okay, so the pay is good. The pay is good. I'm not going to reveal how much I earn, but the
So that
pay is
will
good.
not bill you.
The thing is that I think a lot of people underestimate how much DevRel community managers earn. And sometimes I see some tweets and I just smile because of course I'm not that loud, especially when it comes to finances. I believe how much I earn should be my personal business,
Mm.
right? It's nobody's cup of tea, but the pay is good. Like when I say good, I mean good.
Oh. Well, nice. I think also it's a thing with where certain people feel that because people write code they should earn more than
Yeah,
people who
more
don't
exactly.
write code and are
Exactly.
like soft skills. Like, what are we doing with soft
Exactly.
skills? Well, I think
No.
also in addition to what you have said, um companies are beginning to realize the relevance of these roles, because
Mhm.
DevRel was probably not something that was too like you know
Yeah.
outside. But now companies are realizing, okay, we have a product. We really need somebody who can push this to the community, who can communicate this to the community, and also to add to that, companies' budget also matters. Like
Mm-hmm.
Google, for example, could offer somebody 200K, for example,
Example.
and this example, and this other company could only offer 50K. So it also depends. But
Yeah, it
yeah, I
depends on the company. Yeah. But then it's important for people not to underestimate these roles and think that the only way you can make a lot of money is by writing codes.
hmm,
That's the most important thing. There are some developers who don't earn as much as some community managers, and there are also some community managers who don't earn as much as some developers. It depends on the company, as you rightly said.
yeah, great. We still have few questions and we have few minutes, so probably just take the last one or the last two. Oh, it's even remaining two. So Jiki Bot says, what has been your experience with developing and delivering compelling contents for developer audiences? Oh, this is nice.
Can you rephrase the question with what you understand? Let me know if what I got from the question is the same thing you understand.
So what I believe here is, like you mentioned, you're creating content for developer audiences as a developer community manager. So like, what
Mm-hmm.
has been your experience being able to kind of express this to developers? Like at possibly like, what is the feedback usually like? Is the content
Okay,
um
okay.
yeah.
All right. So I started with writing content in 2020. Like I said, technical writing. I've always loved to write my whole life. But then in 2020, I ventured into technical writing. I wrote a couple couple of blogs on my website. I wrote some for Free Code Camp. I wrote some for I think there is this company called Works Hub. Yeah. I wrote some articles for them. And already, as I mentioned, I share tweets a lot whenever I go for events. Then I don't do that anymore because I hardly go for events now. But then whenever I go for events, I like to tweet, and I usually have a lot of engagement. So if you were following this video from start, you see that initially I wasn't good at this, like so good. I just wanted to start something on my own. And one
Mm.
beautiful thing about trying things on your own is that nobody's judging you. I
Yeah.
mean, it's sweet,
People will
Abby.
judge you though.
People judge me like it's your business, right?
Oh yeah.
Nobody's telling me to do it. I'm tweeting for myself. I'm
Yeah.
writing my
Yeah.
article. This
True.
is your business. And as I write, I keep improving. I don't have a manager to sack me or fire me because my article had a lot of grammatical errors.
Okay, I get that.
So
Yeah.
now with that, I was able to keep working on, improving. And it's not like I've always even been a bad writer because I read a lot and I write very well. But then with time, I kept on improving and improving and improving. So now that I'm a community manager, writing is basically natural to me. I don't
Mm.
struggle a lot to write. If I want to maybe make an announcement to the community that I'm managing, I just need to like sit down and bring out my laptop and the content flow.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
why even at She Code Africa, most times then, last year I didn't work so much at She Code Africa because of the whole pregnancy
Yeah.
and, childbirth. But previously, whenever my teammates need certain content, they will just ping me because they know
Mm.
that I really know how to express my thoughts in writing.
Oh,
Like
nice.
currently, I'm still learning how to. One of the reasons I created my YouTube channel, I did mention this, was because I want to practice this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I realized that I communicate better when I write,
Mm.
but when I want to say my mind, I
Yeah.
compress a lot of things into one statement, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to express myself the way I write things down.
Oh,
So my
nice.
experience, with creating, because creating content, the reason I'm bringing this whole background is because when you say content, I didn't really know the kind of content you mean. When you're tweeting, you're creating content. I don't know if
Yeah.
you know that. People are
Yeah,
reading
I
it
do.
now. When you're, making YouTube videos, you're creating content. When you're writing, you're creating content. So far, it's been a good experience. I'm learning. I am not perfect. As I
Yeah.
said, this I'm even happy I'm able to, talk this way with Dillion. I'm really improving. I'm really
Nice.
happy for myself. And I am improving on it. I'm trying to appear more in front of people.
Mm.
Since this is one of the things that I'm required to do, I need to be good
Yeah.
at it. That's why
Yeah.
I'm practicing. And I'm practicing it with my YouTube channel as well, where I feel like if you judge me, it's your business. It's my YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of the things I do. So it's been a good experience, as I said. The developers I've managed so far are, they give me like, I see their feedback. When
Mm.
I managed open source community Africa social media platform, before I stopped volunteering, I stopped volunteering with them in October, immediately after I put to bed because I couldn't focus on
Yeah.
everything at the same time. But I managed social media for Oscar Fest 21, sorry,
Mm.
Oscar Fest 20 and
2020. Yeah.
Oscar Fest 22. And I was able to grow the Twitter and the general social media platform. Twitter, for instance, moved from 2,000 followers to about 20K plus or thereabouts.
Wow.
A
Ha.
good development.
Come and handle my social media for me.
My content is actually content.
Come and handle my social media for me. Well, really nice, and I think I just really relate to that part of like something you have been doing on your own. It just begins to flow when you're in a professional setting. Even before I became a developer advocate, I was like writing articles, and of course, nobody. I mean, apart from the people who would judge you, but it wasn't like I was under any payroll where they could just drop me off, yell at me. I really relate to that. And we have just 1 minute. So it is 1 minute. Just want you to answer the last question and then we'll just wrap up. So Joseph is saying that as an introvert, I cannot really see myself doing all this talking to new people and all that. And the person is saying, can you use writing to support this? So as briefly as you can, just answer the question.
Okay. I am happy someone actually asked this question because I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the, did I mention I'm an introvert too?
I
I don't know if
don't
you
think you
mentioned it.
mentioned that now.
So I'm an introvert as well, but I love to share. So one thing you have to ask yourself is, how much do you really love to educate people? How much do you really want to share to people, with people rather? So if you love to write, it's great, but somehow you still have to make conscious efforts at knowing how to face people and speak,
Mm,
right? Nobody started being better. I believe that a lot of people who speak at big events, when you sit down with them, they will still tell you that they feel nervous before they come on
yeah,
stage. A lot
yeah,
of people, we feel that prolific speakers and all of that, they still feel very, very nervous before they climb the stage.
yeah,
But they just have to do it, because the more you do it, the more you get better at it. So you can't shy away from things because you are not good at it. I know I'm an introvert, but I'm not hiding under that to, like, stop myself from doing the things I love to do. So
mm,
writing will help you. If you know how to write, it's going to really help you, because the things you can't communicate very efficiently, verbally, you can write them down, which has been
yeah,
my forth. I write very well. But then with time, I realized that I need to still face people. And now
yeah,
here I'm trying as much as I can to show up, both on
yeah.
my YouTube, other people's events, just to get better at my craft.
Nice.
So yes, in answer to that question, one line is yes, you can use writing to support this, but don't stop there.
Ah,
Try
nice.
to know how to face people.
Nice. Really love how you are able to relate your story to all of these questions and how you have been able to navigate all of this. So we have come to the end of the questions. Thankfully, there are no more questions, so I'm not kind of skipping any question. But yeah, thank you so much, Amarachi, for the different points you have touched, how you have shared your story. Few people in the comments here talk about how they can relate to your story, and yeah, it's so nice that you are able to kind of share your own opinions, your thoughts, and your ideas around all of these things. And
Yeah.
I think lastly, it's like any platform. Of course, I'm also going to add it to the video description, but I can also add it in the live chat here. Any platform that you want to share, maybe your YouTube or your blog or wherever. I think you can type on your own end, right?
No, I can't. I think that's
Okay,
one of the limitations. I can't type. Maybe because I'm not logged in, but I can't type right
or
now.
maybe that. Um, I think I'll just add it to the video description because the live chats will not be live when people are watching it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's good.
yeah, I'll add your other things and people can
Yeah,
reach
but
you.
by the way, on Twitter is basically Amarachi Johnson. I believe if you type that, my name might pop up. And on YouTube, Amarachi Johnson-Ubah. So these are
Oh,
like basically two platforms I would love people to follow. On YouTube, I share a couple of community management related article, even though
yeah,
the core is something around motherhood and career. But then I still share a couple of tech stuff, DevRel stuff. So please subscribe.
yeah, great. Amarachi
Just
Johnson
to,
Uba on
yeah,
YouTube.
my name.
Oh, great. Hopefully the people who also come back to watch this later can also learn from all of this that we have learned. I've also learned things about community management myself. So
Yeah,
thank you once again, Amarachi. Hopefully sometime we can do this again and share more experiences, share
yeah,
more lessons and tips with others.
wonderful.
But I think
Yeah.
this is where we say bye. And for those who joined live, those who may have left already, those who stayed around, thank you for joining. Thank you for engaging. And have a great rest of your weekend.